Today's guest is someone whose name has been popping up everywhere in the design world, Caroline Gidiere. Birmingham-based, Caroline is an acclaimed interior decorator and tastemaker whose work has been featured in Veranda, Luxe, Southern Living, House Beautiful, and more. In fact, Veranda named her one of its 2021 Next Legends, which, if you have seen her work, is no surprise at all. What I find especially interesting about Caroline's story is that she is not from the world of design. Her career actually began in law. We will hear about her journey from the courtroom to creating the timeless, fresh interiors she is known for today. We also talk about her exciting upcoming projects, including her participation in the prestigious Kips Palm Beach Showhouse 2025 and the release of her very first book, which hits shelves March of 2025. I cannot wait to dive in. Let's get started. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host and the founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma's silver. We have a lot of really exciting things to cover. You have some really exciting projects in the works, but we'll get to that in a moment. I want to just turn this over to you and give you a chance to introduce yourself and what it is that you do that we're going to be talking about today.
Well, my name is Caroline Gidiere, and I'm a decorator based out of Birmingham, Alabama. And I guess the big headlines for me right now are I have a book coming out in March. I am doing Kips Bay in Palm Beach, and also I'm speaking at Palm Beach Design Days. So for me, that's like huge, more than I've probably ever had going on ever. So big excitement.
I mean, that's exciting all around. They're really exciting projects. I do want to just back up a moment. How did you land here? How did you get into all of this?
I mean, I think my entree is something of a lot of interest to a lot of people because particularly for people who love decorating, all of us have a little bit of a decorator or designer in us, the ones of us who care about it. And we have opinions and we want to kind of do it ourselves. A lot of us do. So I used to be an attorney. I mean, I still maintain my license only because I'm still a fraidy cat and scared to give it up completely. So I mean, I can't practice, but I still maintain it. But I was a lawyer for a long time, and very seriously so. I was a named partner in a law firm, and after law school, I clerked for a federal circuit judge, and then I moved to DC and worked for the Department of Justice for a couple of years before I moved back and joined a law firm. And eventually made partner, and eventually my name was on the door. And so I was very seriously an attorney. I was a litigator, and I did complex corporate and securities litigation. I was a good student, and despite not truly loving taking tests or doing things, I guess was in this mindset of, you have to make an A or whatever, and kind of plowed down that road for so long until it just got so intense with life and being married and having young children, the internal battle between feeling like you're not a good mother and not a good attorney because you can't give either one 100%, and then the time battles between my husband and myself, just trying to figure out our schedules and whose essentially career was more important. Like I'm trying a case in Memphis for 2 weeks, and it's like, well, my client's annual meeting is during that time and they can't move it. And you know what I'm saying? So it got so intense. And at the same time, I had built a house here in Mountain Brook with James Carter as the architect. And he is and had been a really close friend of mine for many years. offices were next door to each other in the same office building. And we struck up a close friendship based on our shared love of architecture and design. And we would travel on ICAA trips together to go see things. And we had lunch weekly, and we were always keeping up with what everybody was doing in the design world. It was a real, I say a real love fest. When we built the house, it was just really lovely collaborating with James. It was like working with an older brother. We were very young building our house, and, he would say, "Oh, yeah, it's a great idea, but you can't afford it." Things like that, like just very casual. We worked hand in hand together on it. And, a couple of times James planted some seeds and said, you have really great taste. And if you ever decided to do this, you would be great at it, because I've never seen anybody tackle like, their hardware schedule, like with the fervor that you have, and you're so detail oriented, it would be a good fit. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. After we built the house, it was completed. I started getting notes in the mailbox from people asking questions, asking for help, and friends began asking me to come over and help them with different things. At the same time, work was getting more intense. So it's like this long, slow path being led toward in this direction, if you will, just not really thinking about it so much. And then after a pretty intense season and huge disappointment at work, my husband was like, you really should be charging for this. You spend all these hours helping your friends, and this is like a real service. And he wrapped up my business license and put it all together in a little accordion folder and put it in a box and wrapped it and put it under the tree at Christmas. And when I opened it, he said, "It's time. You need to do this, and you need to take it seriously." And so it still took me a year to turn in my notice and quit at work. And I was really kind of embarrassed to tell anybody. I just had a lot of shame, because one thing I remember when I was talking to James about it and told him, like, I've decided to do this, he was like, "Well, I mean, you can't throw a rock here in Mountain Brook without hitting some housewife who calls herself a decorator, so you should be fine." I was like, "Okay."
Oh my gosh.
I'm throwing away my career, and that's all you can give me. I thought you were behind. Anyway, I'm just kidding. But, it was kind of like embarrassing to say it out loud, like I wasn't entitled to it. And also, I really just kind of had to start from scratch. I have literally reinvented the wheel, feeling around in the dark over here. But because it's my passion and because I love it so much, it's not, I mean, I haven't been knocked down. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, I can figure it out. I can figure it out. I can do it. I can. And I've been so eager to learn. And I'm a huge student, always have been. I have a huge book collection. I'm a researcher, lawyer, so I'm always trying to find precedent, if you will, for ideas that I have and taking them to workrooms and saying, like, help me figure out how to do this. Can we do this? Am I crazy for asking this? How does it work? How do other people do this? Teach me, like help me learn. Because I think a lot of the stuff I know now with the young ladies and gentlemen that come to me from school and work in my office, that the key things for residential design, besides CAD, which is essential, they're really not taught in design school. Or the things, nobody teaches them how to measure for drapery, or how to follow up on procurement, how to, how to manage a business, and the details of execution, and how to engage with clients, be respectful, and all those kind of things, the kind of life experience that I did. I guess practicing law taught me so much about all of that in my role in the cases that I worked on with the partner that I was paired with. I would always take on the experts' report and their information and kind of like have to learn something new with every case well enough to be able to engage with the expert, get their report, and then put it on at trial. So I'm just kind of used to having to just roll up my sleeves and figure out new things all the time. And when you love it, like we do, when we people who love design just kind of really love it, and I just I work constantly now, not, and it doesn't feel like work, and that's the truth. I mean, I'm just always thinking, like flipping through books or magazines and thinking, what lamps could we do in that room on that console that would look fabulous? I just, it's never a chore. It's
Yeah,
always an exciting
exciting.
opportunity. Yeah.
You said a couple of things that I do want to call out because I know that I have personally experienced them and I'm
Mhm.
sure that others would resonate with. So I do just want to
Yeah.
talk about it for a second. I so just connected when you were talking about shame and career transition
Mhm.
because, and this is not about me and I won't go deep into this, but I had an event planning company for many years. I primarily worked in weddings and people book 1 to 2 years in advance. And so there came a time where I did feel called to segue out of that, but I felt trapped because it
Mhm.
felt like, how in the world do I get out of this if people are booking so far in advance and I have to take the bookings if I want a paycheck?
Yeah.
It was very challenging. I grew very quickly in a very short period of time, and people were constantly, as miserable as I was behind the scenes, people were constantly telling me, oh my gosh, just kind of singing my praises. And
Right.
it felt almost like closing the company, which COVID kind of gave me the out that I needed. I helped
Yeah.
my clients wrap things up and just so that they weren't stuck in a terrible situation. I literally was talking about it in therapy. I felt so much shame because I
Yeah.
felt like people had, and very different. Of course, you were in law, very different than event planning. But I did feel like because people held me at such high regard when I was this successful
Mhm.
entrepreneur,
Mhm.
killing it in my field, I got a lot of mixed messaging surrounding that closure. Whereas at first I felt like, wow, this is what I want, so people will be supportive.
Mhm.
People were very confused by my decision. Like,
Yeah.
how would you leave that? How could you transition out of that? Why would you want to do that? And I think that's something that a lot of people face. And you're talking about, you're in this law career,
Mhm.
potentially on the outside, looks like you're thriving, but on the inside, it's creating a lot of juggling that is not feeling particularly pleasant at home and in
Right.
schedules. Maybe not bringing you as much joy as, the work that you're doing now is. I just think that's so human.
Yeah.
And I love that you called that out.
Well, and also I'll say, mixed messaging and not getting support. I mean, my mother literally, if she could have laid in front of me and kept me from doing it, she would have stopped me. If she had the
Yeah.
power to stop me, she would have stopped me.
Yeah.
And had a conversation with me and said, "You are making a horrible mistake. You cannot do this. You literally stop. You can't do this. You are throwing away everything that you have worked for." And even have my father call. And now that's calling in, I mean, because she only pulls him.
Reinforcement.
Yes, she only makes him get involved when it is like very serious, because he's very tenderhearted and we're close. And God bless, my mother passed this past year, but we did have a moment to reconcile on all of that. And she was like, this is beyond what I ever dreamed was possible for you. And that also pitches back to the fact that I'm from a very small town in the South. In Florence at the time, Florence, Alabama, at the time, there weren't Betsy Brown on the main street in downtown Florence. There wasn't. There's like a five and dime and, a soda fountain. There wasn't anywhere to look, to see, to believe that this is a legitimate career and something that you could really,
Thrive
consider
in.
a profession.
Yeah.
And my mother was always really big on young women having something to fall back on to support yourself, to just for the long arc of life. Just make sure that you have a way of making a living. And even if you don't, and once your children are raised, if you have children or if you don't, not to force that on me or anyone, but basically like have a way to be independent. But then I think she had a lot of pride because she went to law school later. She had a lot of pride in the fact that I was a successful attorney. And she also knew, she said, Caroline, you can't go back into this. When you step away, it's gone. It's like poof, it's going to disappear and you cannot go back to it. So if you are wrong about this, you're making a very grave mistake. But the thing is, I feel like when you find your thing and you are doing the thing that deep down inside, and even if you don't want to admit it to other people, that you're good at something, like I got this. I can do this. I know I can do it. Give me a chance. Put me in. I can do it. I know I can do it. When you have that sense like down inside, even if you're ashamed to say it, I feel like you're not going to be, I wasn't going to let even my mom or dad stop me because I had this sense of I could be as good as anybody else, anybody that I see. I promise I can do it as good as they can, and I'll work harder to do it better. I
Yeah.
just kind of had that sense as I pushed into this second career. And that's the other thing is it's a second career. It's only because I love it. And that has been a North Star in decisions relating to clients, projects, because I really only want to work for and on projects with delightful people who are wonderful to be around and great stuff that we love to do. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
I've worked so hard, drudged so long. Like this is about joy. This is about creating beautiful things for wonderful people and making their lives better and making beauty. And it's hard work. It's a ton of hard work, but I'm pulled towards the joyfulness of it, and I want to try to stay in that vibration.
Well, and that's also its own lesson because you can be good. That was the other thing I heard a lot was like, you're so good at it. And it's like, yeah, but it's killing me. I literally feel like
Yeah.
I'm drowning. You can be good at a lot of things, but following, like you said, that joy, what just
Mhm.
actually doesn't feel like it has its hard moments. Everything is going to have its hard moments, but
Mhm.
if you enjoy putting in the time and it's just making you happy and you just feel
Mhm.
better in general about life
Yeah.
when you're doing it, that is your, like you said, your North Star, your guidepost. And how beautiful that your husband from the very beginning was encouraging you to follow that all along.
He's been a tremendous support. And then also, when mama ain't, as we say in the South, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So when, when I'm joyful and happy and, maybe I've got a lot going on, but I'm in a good mood about it, that permeates throughout the entire house. I hope at least that. And I feel a sense that it was just like taking the pressure valve on a pressure cooker, like releasing the valve and letting all the steam out. It all just kind of melted away. And immediately, everything got better. So I'm very fortunate to have his support and to not have to put bread on the table. And that again enables me to kind of be more selective, take fewer projects, fewer bigger projects, and spend a lot of time, roll up my sleeves, and really get into working on houses and layering things in because it can be quick, but when it's done right, it takes years and layers and layers and layers. I really really enjoy doing that. Yeah, but we all get our start. You have to kind of find your way. I have been fortunate enough to work myself into that being my goal, to work on fewer projects and bigger projects. And we just completed one we've been working on for 5 years. So, soon after, and well before I even had a exterior office. So with James Carter. So anyway, it's been a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
I mean, you've put yourself in the same bracket as so many top designers, decorators in your field. So just congratulations overall, because
Thank
that's a
you.
huge, huge deal. So I would say that you have successfully accomplished at least one of the goals. I do want to talk a little more about like how would you design like what's your decorating philosophy, or do you have certain tenets that you try to follow? I mean, of course your work is very client led, but
Yes.
what is like your baseline?
I do love color, but I don't, in that I say that I love color. What I do love a monochromatic palette as well, and have done that and delighted in doing, creams and beiges and with different textures and things like that. And my first house that I ever had was very much creams, and taupes and with a little bit of yellow. But I think more than saying color and pattern, I think I'm more of a classicist and traditionalist. I love to look back at the greats and study their work. I love using old textiles that have a long history and designs and furniture that has a long history because I abhor trends. I try to stay away from them because I guess I'm so practical and pragmatic that I've just seen how wasteful it can be when you invest in something that is captivating and interesting in a moment, but then everybody has it and you don't want it anymore. As soon as you see all your neighbors have it, then you're like, this is what everybody has, and I no longer like it, because there are too many people. You can go to wherever and see it all the time. It doesn't seem special or unique. I think all of us kind of want something that not everybody has. Maybe we don't,
Well,
but
authenticity. It doesn't
yeah,
feel as personal if the whole world
right.
is doing it.
Yes. And that's the other thing. And I spent a lot of time in the book talking about tailoring our homes to the individual. The title of my book is Interiors for Life and Good Taste. And I talk a lot about the fact that our homes, when we live in them, become our lives. This is where we come to restore, lick our wounds, and gain power. What being at home empowers us to go out into the world and do good things or be sharp and focused, or whatever it is that we do, we gain that power from our homes. My job is to make it beautiful and comfortable and totally bespoke to the individual. What gives you power? What makes you feel comfortable? What makes you proud of where you came from? What are the things that we can do to make your life easier and more enjoyable, to take away issues that so you can just focus on the details and the interactions with other human beings, whoever is your family or your friends or whatever. I find looking back into history to the, Francis Elkins and the Billy Baldwins and Bunny Mellon and even Mario Boita. I love to look back at Bunny's work, and she has such a long career. Sister, everybody. I have everybody's book. And I like to look back and study the older greats. Particularly, I think Francis Elkins has the most influence over me because I just feel like she kind of started it all for all of us. I really love Madeline Castang as well, and love their stories, and like to understand, kind of how these women got their start and what drove them. But I just kind of feel like design for me is kind of like a pair of Levi's jeans. I'm kind of workshopping this metaphor, if you'll go with me on it. It's kind
I'm
of
on
like,
board.
yeah, like they're classic. I love Kate jeans. I love A Goldie. I love all these other ones, but I'm always, the stack in my closet is Levi's jeans. I'm always coming back to just that very classic. And you can throw on a pair of stilettos and a lacy camisole and a blazer and a clutch and some diamond earrings and go high, or, a sweatshirt and your tennis shoes. But the jeans don't change, but they are classic and they go with whatever mood you're going with. And uniquely American. I think I do like to use a lot of continental antiques from Europe and abroad, but that's is uniquely American. I mean, not uniquely, but that is very American. We've always done that. It's never been, except I guess during the 70s, during that American colonial movement, is the only time I can think of in America where we were sold on American by itself. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's it. Color, pattern, old, classic, but make it fresh. I don't want it to feel like my grandmother's house. It was a little too precious. And there were a lot of things that have gone by the wayside that we'll probably never bring back. I think about shears,
Yeah.
and Elsa, Francis Elkins used a lot of shears. Never gonna, I just can't imagine ever using shears. Maybe I say never, and then like 2 years from now, I'll have them in a project and love them. But
This clip is going to
anyway,
come back to haunt you at some point.
right. Did I say never? I mean, that's the fun thing too with working. On the cover of my book, I have a conversation sofa. And in a client's house, when we walked in her living room, she was like, I really want a conversation sofa. And I was like, no, I mean, no. I mean, no, we don't want to call it. Kept this like too big. There's not enough space. Then I started thinking, why no? That's me. That's because I'm afraid to do this. That's because I don't know how to do this. And I'm telling her no, but it actually is a great idea. So I just need to sit down and get this figured out. Then off to the races with the research and the workroom, and never say never, but yeah.
You just mentioned your client. So this is one of the things I was also wondering, especially as you were kind of talking about your own, likes, dislikes, not dislikes, but, things that are not particularly your aesthetic.
Yes.
What are some of the conversations that you're having with clients early on to get to know them, to make sure that the spaces are reflections of their lives?
Yeah, well, I send a questionnaire, and that's kind of where we get started when we can. Sometimes projects are, get started in different ways. For the most part, I like to know, like, what's your favorite meal? What kind of wine do you like? Where do you like to vacation? What's your favorite restaurant? What do you order? What books are on your shelf? What's your favorite color? What do you wear out to dinner at night? What do you wear to a cocktail party? All of these kind of details. Your decorator has got to get to know you hand and glove. I have to be able to, and over time, I should be able to predict what your reaction to any design element is going to be. Just getting to know and asking and honoring their opinions. Now, sometimes I have to come in and say, no, you're wrong. You're going to have to trust me on this. I know you don't, but I'm right. I can explain to you why I want to do this. But I think in the long run, you will like what I'm telling you to do a lot better than what you think you want right now. And that's the job of a decorator. I mean, they
Right.
do want that advice. They do want somebody to come in and stop them from making a mistake or giving them what they didn't know they wanted,
It's the
and
push. It's the push.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
How would something less obvious, like favorite foods, wine, travel destinations, give you insight into their personalities or design direction?
Well, if you have, for instance, a couple that says, oh, well, you know, we like microbrews, and we like to go to we have a place, in North Carolina on the lake. That's our favorite place to go in the summer. We don't like to go out much. We like to stay at home and grill out. Or if they say our honeymoon was at Il Pellegrino and we love Chianti Classico. I don't know. These sort of things start to give me a flavor. Or we went to Africa on our honeymoon and we love it and we want to go back. And so then, I'm flipping through like de Gournay's catalog and I see something from the Amazon, what I'm saying, I'm like, just all of this feeds in. Or if they we love the Cotswolds, with one client, the boys, they hunt every weekend and there are always these dirty shoes or whatever, then I'm thinking about the drop zone and, do we use their antlers somewhere? I don't know. Just all of this information. It's not, doesn't give me a total picture, but it fills my library with more and more information, the more conversations we have, the more we talk, the more time we spend together. I love to become friends with my clients. Some clients don't have time for that, and that's why they've hired a decorator, right? They don't have the time simply to sit down and chit chat and be friends. They can just give you some stuff and they want you to go with it. And I can do that too. I can absolutely do that and make predictions and engage when I need to get the information needed to make the right decisions for them and guide them. But the ones that are down for it, I really become good friends because we're in and out of their houses. It's so intimate. It is so intimate. A lot of times we have keys and we're in and out, and happily so for them to do things in their houses when they're not there, and they trust us that much. So you've got to get to this kind of, as we say in the South, you've got to be able to G-haw. You got to kind of be able to get to this place where you're really comfortable with each other and very intuitive person. And so I'm always analyzing and trying to pick up on the information to be able to say, oh, she's going to hate that. Oh, like, no, that's never going to work. Or, oh my gosh, I know somebody who would love this when you come across it. You've got to kind of get to that point.
I just want to ask this because I realized I kind of jumped ahead and didn't ask it earlier, but I was just thinking about it. You said something and I was just like, oh, right. So, interior decorating.
Yeah.
For those listening, are you able to differentiate a little bit between that and interior design?
Oh, of course. As an attorney, I try to make that very clear upfront. I am a decorator. I am not a designer. I don't have a degree. I have not gone to school for this. I can tell you if a design is pretty, balanced, proportion, gorgeous, classical, if it looks great, if I would do something different, but I cannot draw it for you. And I don't know if a wall is load bearing or not. I can't do anything with your electrical except for my knowledge of kind of how the game works, where things go. I can do an electrical plan based on how I want the lighting to work in the room. I have that very detailed knowledge of that kind of stuff. I can't draw. I can sketch, but I can't work in CAD or do any of those things that people with design degrees can. And I always try to make that very clear. I don't want to misrepresent myself. I can work with your architect or the person who you've hired to do the drawings for your house in detail, hand in hand, to create the design. But I don't do that myself.
Do you find then that your job is very collaborative because you're bringing in more
Absolutely.
folks who are specific to those, like
Yes. So
electrician?
so often our clients either have an architect or they have a contractor who has people that work for them that do the design or that they contract out. Those people in particular, we're always collaborating. I'm working with the cabinet maker, um, or the person who's doing the doors and sending inspiration images from different houses and saying, can we do something like this to craft something? Yes, very, very collaborative. It works best when everybody gets along well because there are a lot of egos there, but I haven't really had any trouble. I've worked with Stan Dixon's office on a project recently, and then I've worked with James now on 2 projects with Wilson Fuqua out in Dallas. They've all been just wonderful to work with. I have healthy respect for what they do and what my limitations are, and that it has to be a collaboration. We've got to all get on the same page, and we've got to put our egos to the side to make sure that this works for the client. So I guess because I'm older, I appreciate when it's the right time to have a voice and to say, particularly when I think something is wrong, or when, it's like, hey, what if, can anybody get on board with this idea? that might be great and it might also suck, but just not being afraid to
Think outside the
collaborate
box.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, and not be afraid or embarrassed that somebody wouldn't be on board with it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just
Yeah.
kind of put our big girl panties on in those situations for the best for the client.
Of course, you have quite a reputation under your belt at this point, which has probably allowed you to delve into this book that you have. It's coming out soon. How did that come about? I mean, where does that start?
Well, my path, I think is different. I'm pretty sure it's different than most people in that I didn't have a book agent. I met Charles Myers, who's the publisher of Rizzoli, at a design weekend with a whole bunch of people. I was with Paloma and Max Sinstead, and after a dinner, everybody was sitting around just kind of chit-chatting. We were just talking about interior design books. I had a lot of questions about what makes a good one and which one sells, just, trying to put away information for the future. A couple of weeks later, Charles emailed me and offered me a book deal. The concept was that they love interior books, but some with a little bit of entertaining, they feel like is where the market is headed. They feel like this is what people want right now. He felt like I would be the person to do that. They wanted it for sure to be about my interiors and images of the interiors, but could I also incorporate entertaining into it, which I have always done. And was happy to do that. And it was like gung ho about it. I will say, though, when I got the email first, I declined because I was like, I'm really not ready for this. And then I spoke to two friends who were like, oh no, you're not going to get this offer a second time. So whether you're ready or not, you email him back right now and you tell him that you are ready. You have thought
Change
about it
your
and you
mind.
are ready. Yes.
Yeah.
Which I did because I almost kind of let this slip. But it again, I said everything I've ever done, I've reinvented the wheels. My editor, Philip Reeser, and I sat down and talked and we agreed. My high concept was, look, I love and I stand behind my work and the things that I've done. I'm not sure if I have enough to fill a whole book. And it's kind of that has kind of been like the loaves and fishes. I didn't think I had enough to fill a whole book. That's why I was concerned. And at the end, we had so many photos that we had to cut. They actually added a signature to the book because we all kind of wanted to keep more of the photos in. So a signature 16 pages in. The high concept was I think the images of the interiors will attract the clients that I'm looking for. The people who want to hire me, when they see these, they'll know that we're simpatico and they will reach out. But there are a whole bunch of us out there that are aspirational in our purchases of interior design books. And this younger generation has not had the benefit that like Philip and I have of our grandmothers and mothers who were versed in Emily Post and who kept linen closets and china closets and silver closets and entertained all the time and had luncheons and teas. Like that generation is slipping away from us. So to all of that knowledge, because we are now in this fast-paced digital age, and yet through COVID, we now all have this appreciation of home and entertaining, and we remember now the joy and the delight of and the relaxed nature of just having people over to the house. And now this younger generation kind of really wants to and aspires to have a cocktail party, set up their bar at their house, have home entertaining. It's not an entertaining book, it's an interior design book. But I have a chapter, for instance, on a cocktail party primer, like here are all the things that you need to think about or you should have checklist for a cocktail party. Here's how to set up your bar. Here are all the elements that you need to set up your bar. Here's how to organize your house to be ready for entertaining, what to do with your tablecloths and your napkins. I have a chapter and little chapters on things like at your front door, at your back door, your guest bedroom, like a little checklist for that. Just little tidbits laced throughout the book that are helpful And I wanted the book to be small, so it would be on the top of the stack. And also to keep the price down because I thought, wealthier ladies won't look at the price. They'll buy it because they want it. Younger people need to have access to it. So if the book costs, like $80 or $90, they might buy it for themselves, but they're certainly not going to buy it as a gift, for somebody else because it would be too expensive. So I wanted to keep it smaller to make it less expensive and also to put it at the top of the stack. And then my pitch going in, and I'm sure they're like, this chick, like, we're offering you a deal and you're coming in with a big request. But I was like, can we please dip the edges of the book? Because I wanted the book itself to be a design element. I want the book to be beautiful because when I set books on coffee tables, I'm always like turning them around, like who gets the pretty spine and everybody else gets the pages side. I wanted it to be pretty from all angles for it to be a design element. I told Philip at one point, I feel like I'm Tracy Flick in Election. I don't know if you remember Reese Witherspoon and Sarah Jessica Parker, Matthew Broderick. It's a great film. Everybody loves Legally Blonde with Reese, but I think her best film was maybe Election. And I'm like Tracy Flick with my card table and my cupcakes, like trying to sell like this book, trying to come up with a way to, I don't know, the details are very important to me. And I just got a copy yesterday. The book just arrived on my doorstep and I don't know if you can see how pretty. Isn't it beautiful?
It is so pretty. Is it the lighting or are the pages blue?
The pages are blue, the edges
Oh
are
my gosh, it's
dipped.
gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, how fun.
At first they said no. They were like, you're crazy. We don't do that. It's too expensive. And I was like, okay, file it away. When you see how beautiful this book is, you're going to want the pages to be dipped in blue. And they're like, okay, whatever. And at the end, when we were putting it together, I asked again, I was like, please, can I have the dipped edges? And I don't know how to cut this down. And they came back, they gave me the dipped edges and they gave me 16 extra pages. So, woohoo!
Oh my gosh. And there's the lawyer in you.
Yeah.
There it
Well,
was.
I mean, I think it's all these
Knew what
manifestation
you
woo
wanted.
woo, yeah, woo woo podcasts I'm listening to anyway, or TikToks. Yeah.
That's great. Well, obviously, super excited about it. I think too, that speaks to your detail-oriented nature, which is what makes you good at what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I love that you fought for that, that you knew what you wanted the project to be. I also think what you're talking about with kind of this lost generation or lost information for generations.
Yeah.
That's also part of why I even created this podcast, right? Because I think there's so
Yes.
many traditions and information that is just falling to the
Yeah.
wayside, and no
Absolutely.
one is continuing it. And I think there's so many of us, I'll be actually 33 in like 2 weeks. That's not something I was taught.
Right.
My mom enjoyed having people over, but it was always very casual. And that's just part of her entertaining style. But there were a lot of things that I learned as an event planner,
Right.
not necessarily that were passed down to me. But there's so many of us, I think, are really embracing domesticity. And
Yes.
like we love being wives. We love hosting our friends. We love, all these things. And I love seeing people embrace all of that. And I am excited to hear that the trend is that, the world is seeing that and wants
Yeah.
some kind of answer to it. So that's super exciting.
I just have this sense that we have this obligation to preserve these things. When your grandmother passes to the here beyond or your mother or whomever, there are things like big silver punch bowls that people give away because they just don't know what to do with them or how to use them. Or I see so much in estate sales that makes me sad that there wasn't somebody who wanted this stuff who was related to this person because it's such great stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that all of that just feels like it's like seeping out in a way and going away. And I just love this movement, Grand Millennial, Grandma Silver. all of it is just right in my wheelhouse. But the question is, and what I worked with in the book is, how do you make this work in the digital age? Because it can't be teas and luncheons. I don't know that we'll ever be back to that, but we can learn from that and layer and make more enriched our entertaining in the house with this knowledge, with these things that it just seemed like everybody's mom had or did, or grandma, when I was coming up, and it's gone. You look around and it's like there's none of that anymore. Who's doing that? Do we even remember? I was planning a party with a good friend of mine, Reagan Kane, and we're trying to figure out something about the invitation. I was like, hold on. And I ran downstairs and got my old copy of Emily Post and like flipped it. Here it is. It says, when you're having this type of party, this is how your invitation should start. Because we were trying to figure out the wording of it. And she was like, Caroline, this is why I love throwing parties with you, because you've got the Emily Post and you know how to use it. So much of that is not useful, but a lot of it kind of still is. That's why I still have the old one. When you're talking about invitations and introductions and protocol and all that kind of stuff.
I always are on the side of formal anyway.
Yeah,
I'd rather be too formal than
sure.
not formal enough. So
Yeah,
I
right.
appreciate that. Yeah.
You can always make it relaxed. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like formal, but not stuffy. You
Yes.
can use your silver goblets and still not make it feel like a state dinner. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I mean, you can make it where everybody enjoys and feels comfortable, but it's elegant and elevated.
Yes. I love the high-low blend. I think
Yeah.
honestly, those are often some of the best gatherings, parties,
Yeah.
because people just feel comfortable, but you're still able to carry on those traditions and all of
Yeah.
it in a really more relaxed environment.
Let me just say, with the high low, I've got two tried and true recipes in the book that I use and I know are great because I've used them so much and got so much feedback on it. One is a great recipe for a French 75 that I love, which is very
One of
elevated,
my very
sophisticated.
favorite
Yeah.
drinks.
Yeah. Very sophisticated cocktail. But I pair with that something that, I mean, in the book we call them bacon straws, but I've always called them bacon sticks. And it's really just bacon on a stick, like wrapped on a stick, which is very low. But you can serve them, roll them up, and put them in like French fries in a julep cup. And they're super crunchy and salty and delicious. Who doesn't love bacon? It's easy to hold on to at a cocktail party. It's yummy, salty, makes your guests want to have another sip of their cocktail, and their nerves go by the wayside
I
and
love
things
that.
like that. And elevated cocktail, a down, very casual snack to go with it. So, anyway,
That's so fun. I love that. And it is also, I think, a bit unexpected.
right.
So I think that also creates something of a talking point for people or like a
Sure.
fun little surprise, which is not, again, like probably one of the easiest things you could do. But
Right.
because people wouldn't expect it, because of its ease and casual nature, they're super excited about it. And that is super fun.
Yes, people are always like, oh my God, what is this? It's so good. Because it's like, rolled in Parmesan cheese and then
Oh my
roasted
gosh,
until it's crunchy. It's
so
so
good.
good. Bacon, cheese, and bread.
You can't miss.
Crunchy, toasted bacon, cheese, and bread. You cannot go wrong. Like
No.
it's completely irresistible. But yeah, and easy to make and freeze them ahead, all of that. It's all about doing it, but making it where you're not killing yourself. You got to be able to relax and enjoy yourself at a party, because if you are anxious, your friends can't, the people who are there can't relax. They don't know how to relax because you're uptight. Entertaining is about, like RuPaul says, being ready so you don't have to get ready. So you can relax when you have a party.
I don't know how much of this you're allowed to speak to yet, but
Yeah.
Kips Bay. Is that
Yeah.
something you want to talk about?
Yeah, I would love
Perfect.
to. I am so excited about my room. It is going to be so lit. I can't tell you how excited I am. I have partnered with Casablanca to use their fabrics and their upholstery. And I mean, I am over the moon. This room is going to be so beautiful and very Palm Beachy. I've got the sitting room
Ooh, that's a
off.
good one.
Yeah,
That's
it's
fun.
right up my Bailey. It's right in my wheelhouse, and it's going to be very feminine, very beautiful, and very Palm Beachy, and maybe kind of a throwback to the 60s and 70s. I mean, we're all inspired by Royale. I'd be surprised
Yeah.
if the whole house isn't like sitting in that moment. But, I've gotten my hand on the shiny sheet. I've got a whole,
I love
and
it.
I've pulled some old Look magazines on Palm Beach in the 60s. And I've done a deep dive and working with a local artisan right now on some stuff. And it's going to be really,
So
really,
exciting.
really great. I can't wait.
Oh my gosh. Well, obviously, I'll be waiting and watching to see because that is so fun. I live for these show houses. I think they are so much fun. I love to see everyone just really bring their own energy and creativity to these spaces. I think it's so fun when you get to obviously seeing client-driven projects are just as
Yeah,
exciting because you're pushed out of your own
yeah.
box in a way, to bring someone else's vision to life. But it is super fun to see when you just get to play.
Well, yes. And I'll say though, I did Kips Bay in Dallas 3 years ago, and I learned then, and it's the same here because the time frame is so short. It is a game of how much can you pivot? Can you pivot today? How about later today too? You're going to have to pivot. Oh, and that you thought you were going to do was going to be great, that's not quite going to be possible in this time frame. But how about this? I mean, it is a constant game of, it's like, American Gladiator trying to make it over all the different hurdles and everything. Like, I can do it, I can do it, I can make it to the finish line. Okay, 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 out of stock, out of stock, we can do it, I can find another one. I mean, it is just a daily spin of, can you pivot?
Oh my gosh.
So
And
anyway.
flexibility, I guess, too.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not exactly my original concept, but it's still, I mean, I step back and I'm like, what? I mean, let it go. Move on. This is great. You're lucky to be doing this. I'm so fortunate to be working with them, with Samuel and Sons. They've partnered with me on trims because they know how much I love trim. And, it's all in the details. We can't just, I mean, the devil is in the details. You got to get everything, for me has to be finished, kind of like couture clothing. When you open it up and you look at the seams
Yeah.
are finished. That's how I hope my rooms are, that they're completely, all the tiny little details are, when you focus in on them, you notice how much attention has been paid to the tiniest details.
Well, I will make sure, obviously, to post all of the things, all of the ways folks can access your social media, your website, how they can
Great.
pre-order your book, where
Yay.
they can find you at Kips Bay this year, in the show notes. Caroline, thank you so much. This was such an exciting conversation. 2025, I think, is really going to be your year. So I'm super excited for you. I will be following along, and I encourage everybody listening to do the same. Thank you for taking the time to chat.
Oh yeah, Allie, it has been a joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for thinking of me. This is a real honor.